With the season that Marcell Ozuna had in 2023 and the start he is off to in 2024, could he actually win the MVP this season? I'll answer that question and many more on today's Mailbag episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Make sure you check out the podcast there as well at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the episode. It might be featured on a podcast like this one, where I'm going to answer all of the questions you submitted on social media. If you're new and watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up button to help support the show. And thank you so much for all your support here at Locked On Braves, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on the audio version. I do appreciate you. I got to give a shout out though to Mike Porter. Let me know he's an everydayer, big fan of the podcast, and also a big fan of Monopoly Go, one of the sponsors on our show. If you enjoy our sponsors, let me know as well. Love hearing that. I do hear you as well that say that there's too many ads on these show. Well, you do get this for free, but if you do enjoy our sponsors, let me know. We got a lot of great ones out there. Also got Lion Man, Leland, Allen, Daniel, Jay Hedecker in here, Charlie Goss, and CJ Palmer, Keith Cash, and more rolling in here. Keith Cash says War Eagle back to you. So we got a lot of people jumping in here on a live in-season podcast. Don't do a lot live during the season, but pretty much all off-season, I do a lot of these podcasts live. So thank you so much for joining me here tonight. I know it's a busy night, draft night in the NFL, and I see the reactions on Twitter. I'm not a Falcons fan. I'm not into the NFL at all, but I see many Falcons fans not really happy, but I appreciate you tuning over here. Got a lot of great coverage, obviously, on Locked On Sports Atlanta, Locked On Falcons of the draft. You want to check that out too. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. FanDuel.com/locked-on. Go there today to get started. Got more rolling in here. Marshall says an everyday listener on Spotify, but first time watching on YouTube. So thank you so much for that. Stan Pierce, Jeffrey Humphreys, as always, Jessica in here as well. Let's get started, though, with today's Mailbag podcast. Let's see, One Iron Lung jumping in here. First question, though, is coming about Marcell Ozuna, and the title of today's episode, and I really want to get into it. It's a good question. It's a good thought. And Isaac Rayfield, hopefully I got that last name correct, says, I know it's too early to really tell, but based on what we've seen so far from Ozuna, do you think he will be a top 3 finisher and MVP by the end of the year, or will him being a DH hinder his chances? So there's two things that are really going to hurt Marcell Ozuna's chances of winning the MVP. And the first one, and I think the biggest one, is the one that you mentioned. In my mind, and I agree with this thought, if you are going to win the NL MVP or AL MVP, any MVP award as the DH, you have to be the best hitter in the game by far. Because in terms of being most valuable, I feel like you have to do more than just swing the bat 4 times, or have 4 at bats, 4 to 5 bats a game. So I agree with the notion that in order to win an MVP award, I think it should be much harder for DHs to get into the Hall of Fame. You're playing not even half the game. You're getting literally 4 or 5 at bats a night while your teammates are out there playing in the field every inning. And they're also having to prepare for 4 or 5 at bats at night. It's not the same. So I agree with the notion that to win an MVP as a DH, you have to be far and away the best hitter in the league that year. So that's one thing that's going to hurt Marcell Ozuna. I guess we're not exactly talking about winning it. Isaac's just asking who could finish top 3. Other thing that's going to hurt him is the off the field stuff. Right or wrong, you agree with it or not, I've given my side on that plenty of times in the past, but there are still people who hold that against him. Obvious case in point, last year was not on the all MLB team, and I don't know how he wasn't the DH on the all MLB team, first or second team, whatever it may be. He was clearly the best DH in the National League last year. I believe they gave it to Bryce Harper. I get it. But that to me was just a clear shun of Marcell Ozuna and them not wanting to give him any recognition because of off-field stuff. So that's two things there. They're going to hold him back. If he's going to finish top 3, he has to show that he is by far the best hitter in baseball. We're almost to that full calendar year once we get to May. But I wanted to go ahead and look at some numbers real quickly, because you look at the numbers from May 1st to now and where Marcell Ozuna ranks. He's going to rank low in WAR, just 5.1 WAR. That's a lot of WAR, but that's 18th best over that time period. And that's just because he has a negative 16.2 defensive rating. You go to just offensive WAR, though, this is on FanGraphs, and he ranks 8th or 7th overall there. But, he still is lacking in WAR, which is what a lot of voters look to today. You look at home runs, and he is second over that time period behind Matt Olson with 47 home runs. And he is tied with Matt Olson for the most runs batted in over that time with 127. So obviously getting the counting numbers, that's no problem. And you look at WRC plus, and he is 8th right there behind Acuna, Freeman, Betts, and Ohtani, who are all now in the National League. So he's in that discussion. Top 3 is going to be hard just because, Mookie Betts off to a great start. Acuna is a little slow right now, but we figure he'll get going. If he just shows any kind of power, he's going to pass Ozuna, and it's going to be really hard. But there is a world in which he could be top 3. I don't see a world in which he could win it, just because at DH, again, you have to be the best hitter in baseball by a wide margin, I think, to make up for the difference of somebody who's playing in the field every day as well. Let's move on to our next question here. This one coming from Caden Hurd, who says, with the team's recent success, it feels like there's been a lot more close games. Do you think it's concerned with the pitching or the hitting? When there's close games like there has been lately, it's more of a focus on the hitting. The pitching has been really good lately, and they've been able to win those close games. Early on, it was the hitting that was having to score a lot of runs, and because of that, we saw some more lopsided wins. But once we see both sides going, you're going to start seeing those easy wins. Look, Monday and Tuesday, there was no stress in those games. I know it was 3-0, 5-0, but there was no question the Braves were going to win those games. Even up until that 9th inning on Wednesday, I feel like that was a pretty stress-free game, even though it was 3-1. So again, they've still been pretty easy wins as far as easy wins go in Major League Baseball, but the hitting has been down a little bit lately, and that's because 3 of your top 4 hitters aren't playing at their max capacity right now, what they're capable of, and we'll obviously have questions on that as well throughout the night. Another one from Caden Hurd, who says, I don't know about you, but I think Justin Lawrence could really succeed if you were to get out of Colorado. Do you think there's a chance the Braves can trade for him and pick up and potentially have him and mold him into the future closer? I've watched Justin Lawrence pitch. In my mind, he's not a closer. He is the best of the options there in Colorado, but I don't see closer stuff from him. It's a weird arm angle. He gets success mostly off of deception, but you're looking at somebody that right now has a 1.55 whip, a 1.35 whip last year. That, in my mind, is not ideal for a closer. I want somebody like Iglesias who's not going to put a lot of runners on base. Justin Lawrence, a walk percentage of 11 last year and a K percentage of just 23.9%. That is not closer material. Now, could the Braves get him and use him as a setup guy if needed? Sure. I don't think that's necessarily a need, but Justin Lawrence isn't a target in my mind. And they still have Iglesias under another year there. And there are some arms coming in the system that I think could have closer potential in the future. But yeah, Justin Lawrence is not somebody that I'm really looking at right now. Kaz Buckeye says, are the Braves the only team in MLB that could have their 3 best hitters producing well below their standards, lose their ace, and have 2 all-star hitters on the IL and have the best record in Major League Baseball? The answer to your question is yes. And this is why we talked about it coming into the season, why I feel so confident just go ahead and talking about the postseason. Look, things can happen, certainly, but the depth of this team has, and the Chris Sale move was a big part of that, because I think you have to expect not just being uncertain whether it might happen. I think you have to expect going into a season now that you're going to lose one of your starters for significant time, if not the entire year. That's just the state of Major League Baseball right now. It's the state of pitching in Major League Baseball. So to go out and make the Chris Sale move, who comes with his own injury risk, I know, but it just added so much depth to the rotation that you could lose somebody like a Spencer Strider. And while you're not going to replace that with this offense that you have, it's still a really, really good rotation. I know the overall ERA isn't quite there yet, but you're still looking at Max Fried, who appears to be getting back on track. Chris Sale, who still has really good stuff. Ronaldo Lopez has been a nice surprise. Charlie Morton, had his ups and downs here. And then you bring up a Bryce Elder, who was an all-star himself last year. So I don't know of another team that could go through what the Braves have gone through to this point and have the, not just have a winning record and be playing good baseball, as you said, have the best record in Major League Baseball. I don't think any other team is equipped to handle those losses and play as well as the Braves have so far. I got a lot more questions to get to in today's episode. Some talking about the Kellick Duvall platoon situation, how that's going, the defense of Arcia and Riley, and many other questions on today's Mailbag episode. I'll answer those here next. It's never too late to show mom your love this Mother's Day with DoorDash. Surprise mom with flowers, gadgets, and self-care essentials all in one place, delivered right to her door. Does mom have a sweet tooth? Is she a tech enthusiast, a beauty connoisseur, or is she outdoorsy? Maybe she's all of those things. If she is, whatever it may be, you can put a smile on her face with a fruit or flower bouquet, makeup, tech gear, workout wear, and more using DoorDash. Again, deliver it right to the door. You want to be a lazy son or daughter? Just use DoorDash and have something sent to your mom. You don't have to worry about it. And it's great. She'll be happy and it'll be no stress on you. Pair flowers with a gift card so she can celebrate any way she wants. Is she a bookworm? I know that is my mom. Try a bookstore, a gift card. Does she love a good latte? Get a gift card to her favorite coffee shop. You can't go wrong. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONMLB. That's LOCKEDONMLB. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Again, one more time, that's LOCKEDONMLB to get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 plus on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order. Again, with the code LOCKEDONMLB at DoorDash. Look, the NFL draft just happened tomorrow. That's all they're going to be talking about on Fox Sports or ESPN, and they're going to be doing it at an annoying level. You want to get rid of all that noise and stop having to constantly turn down your TV. Check out Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for everyday listeners to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinion, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On Monday, we'll recap the Guardians series. Two best teams in baseball going at it. Should be a fun one to discuss. And then I'll catch you up on everything happening at the minor league level, including Owen Murphy, who had another fantastic outing. And I know we got a question about that on tonight's podcast as well, coming from Cass Buckeyes. He says, maybe filed away for a Minors Monday, but what is up with these otherworldly numbers from Owen Murphy? And we did talk about it on this past Minors Monday, the strikeouts that he is getting right now. It is just absurd, the start to the season that Owen Murphy is having, and he had just another even better start on Thursday night. It's a 1.13 ERA right now, a 0.63 whip, and 37 strikeouts in 24 innings pitched. Look, I will be happy to tell you that I was wrong on Owen Murphy. Not that I thought he would be bad, but he is certainly, he is behind, obviously, A.J. Smith-Shawver, Hurston Waldrop, J.R. Ritchie, and Spencer Schwellenbach, and Giancarlo Lara for me. He was in that next tier behind those guys as somebody that I think could be a solid, mid-rotation, number 3 type of upside, but maybe more so a solid number 4. If these what we're seeing right now, and it is Rome, it's high A, but I mean, what he did on Thursday night, 7 innings, 1 hit, no walks, no earned runs, and 10 strikeouts. In his 4 starts this year, he has struck out 8, 11, and 10. And the one thing about Owen Murphy, when I went back and watched him, is that I just didn't see anything that showed me that he was going to be an overpowering pitcher to rack up strikeouts. And that's where he's proven me wrong so far this season. I mean, 37 strikeouts in 24 innings is just truly incredible. I have to go back, and I know it's an off night, so tonight would have been a great night to do it, but I'm going to have to go back and watch an Owen Murphy start to see if there's anything different that's going on with him, just because my looks of him in the past, I didn't see anything to make me believe that he was going to be an overpowering strikeout type of pitcher. I thought he could be a solid, like I said, middle of the rotation guy, give you some innings, good command, good control. But from what we're seeing so far, there may be more in the tank there for Owen Murphy. So he's definitely one worth going back and giving another look on during the season. Moving along with some more questions here. Baltimore Braves fan says, how is Gwinnett's rotation looking so far this season? Who do you think comes up next for the next opportunity? Dylan Dodd had a good start, I know, this week as well. But, it's been Bryce Elder. It's been A.J. Smith-Shawver. A.J. Smith-Shawver struck out 7, but still, struggling with the home run ball a little bit. Darius Vines, Alan Winans have obviously been there and already had their opportunities. So hopefully nobody else is getting a chance anytime soon. Hopefully Bryce Elder is sticking in that rotation and looking pretty good doing it. But Dylan Dodd's there. A.J. Smith-Shawver is there. Huascar Ynoa is there. He's continuing to get stretched out. I don't think he's going to be quite ready anytime soon, but I mentioned, Darius Vines, Alan Winans. Those would be the guys that would be next up in my mind. I guess if you weren't going to call up a Darius Vines or an Alan Winans, I think those would still be the next two guys to get called up if another injury happened or, Bryce Elder struggled to that point. I still think it would be Winans and Vines that get the next call up. But after them, I'd probably say Dylan Dodd. I think with the start of the season that A.J. Smith-Shawver has had, I think he just needs the reps. He needs more time. He was rushed last year. I said it last year when it happened. He was just, because of the circumstances, the Braves had to rush him up. And he just needs more time to develop those pitches, to work on his command. And until we see that happening on a more consistent basis, I just don't think there's any need to really rush him back up again and put him in that situation. So I think Dylan Dodd probably has jumped him in that pecking order a little bit. Same for Hurston Waldrop, who has had some struggles at Double-A to begin the year. So I'd probably say Vines is next man up, then Winans, then Dodd. And then if it got to it, maybe A.J. Smith-Shawver at that point. Dylan Dodd, his last time out, 7 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, which is key for him. 1 earned run on a solo shot and 7 strikeouts. So he's somebody, he typically gives up a lot of hits, but just 3 hits in his last outing. But the previous outing before that gave up 8, 6, and just 4 2/3 innings. And the outing before that, and 9 hits in his outing back on April 5th. But a much better outing for Dylan Dodd last time out. But that would probably be the pecking order for me right now. After Elder, it would be Vines, Winans, Dodd, and then A.J. Smith-Shawver at that point. Unless Huascar Ynoa gets stretched out and is ready and they want to try him, then I would probably put him ahead of A.J. Smith-Shawver after Dylan Dodd. Bellfire says, what have been your thoughts on the Kellick Duvall platoon? Do you see Snit favoring one over the other in big moments going forward? Do you see A seeking an upgrade there at some point? I don't think there's any need for an upgrade. I will say it has to be a little bit frustrating from Jared Kellick's standpoint because he came in, got off to a hot start to begin the season. I feel like we never see him. Maybe the Braves have just faced a ton of lefties here lately, but it seems like it's 1 game in, 1 game out, 2 games in, 2 games out. It's got to be hard to get in a rhythm for somebody who is trying to establish himself as an everyday big leaguer and to have that kind of work. Now, to his credit, when he's come in, he's still giving good at bats, but I feel like we hardly ever see the kid now after the hot start that he got off to. I think there's a chance it gets to the point that Snitker just starts rolling Kellick out there every day. I mean, I know Duvall had a big home run the other night, and Duvall can be solid, but I mean, what Kellick looks so good, and look, he's had some struggles as well, but I want to see Kellick start to get everyday at bats, whatever that looks like. But who do you take out of the lineup? You can't take Michael Harris out. You can't take Ronald out. You're not going to take Ozuna out of the DH spot. It's just so hard to maneuver things around to make sure these guys continue to get at bats. What I find interesting, though, is some of these games where one of them start, I think it depends on the score, but then you're seeing Adam Duvall face a righty late in the game. And it's almost like Snit saying, okay, if you start, you're going to play all the way through. Now, we've seen him pinch hit at times, but there's also been times where it felt like there was a spot to pinch hit one of them, and he didn't. But I think the platoon's been fine. I don't think there's any reason to really look for an upgrade there. But just from a fan's perspective, and I'm sure a Jared Kelnick's perspective, it's got to be a little bit frustrating because of the hot start he got off to, and then it feels like it's just on and off again, and you can't really get into any kind of consistent rhythm. E. Goldie says, how surprised are you with the Rays' level of play record considering the injuries to 3 All-Stars and early struggles of Max, Briley, and Olson? To me, this is the truest testament to how good our front office is and how great the clubhouse is. Kind of already touched on that, but certainly agree with that 100%. It says a lot about this front office, says a lot about the depth that they have gone out and got with a Luis Guillorme, with a David Fletcher, with an Adam Duvall, with a Chris Sale. The moves they've made in the bullpen, it really has, Travis d'Arnaud bringing Chadwick Tromp back. Talked about there in the offseason how big of a move that was to get him back for that depth at the catcher spot. So yes, a big shout out to the front office and the moves they made to create some depth here in the system. Large Lar says, what's your opinion on the chances of Riley and Arcia winning Gold Gloves this season? Riley, I think, definitely has a good chance. I know Ke'Bryan Hayes exists. I know Nolan Arenado still exists. But what Austin Riley's doing, I mean, I don't know how you ignore it. The problem is no fan, no media member, no writer can watch every single inning of every single game. And for me, that's the only way that you can truly judge defense. So what most people are going to do, they're going to go out and look at the defensive metrics out there that are available, and they're going to make a guess. They're going to make their best guess on what they see out there from the metrics. And you look at the metrics right now, and on Baseball Savant, Nolan Arenado has a positive 3 fielding run value. Michael Garcia, he's in the American League, and Brett Beatty has a fielding run value of 1. Austin Riley is at 0. So you're going to see a lot of voters who don't watch every night and just take some of these defensive metrics at face value, probably don't even know what they mean. And to my mind, the only true judge of a good defensive player is watching them every night. And you really just have to build up that reputation. And I don't know that I think Riley is starting to build that reputation. I think for Arcia, it's just going to be a little bit difficult. As good as he is, as great as the arm is, his range is still somewhat limited, and that hurts him in defensive metrics a lot. And I think there are some really good defensive shortstops out there. I could see him being a finalist. I think Riley should definitely be a finalist, but I don't know that either one of them actually wins the award this year. If I had to pick one of the two, I'd say Riley. But I mean, maybe I take all this back because you look at the fielding run value for shortstops, and Arcia is at positive 3. Nick Ahmed of the Giants is at +4. So those two both in the National League, obviously they're at the top. So, I mean, I could certainly see it. Orlando Arcia has been playing at an otherworldly level defensively. Obviously, Austin Riley, I think, has been great over there. So those two guys have a chance, but still a long way to go there. But I'm very impressed with what they've done so far this season. Leland says, you addressed this response to the question on your podcast earlier today, so could you elaborate? Lopez has been a pleasant surprise for Braves fans this far. Was the organization expecting this, or are they surprised too? I mean, 3 years, $33 million, I would imagine, that's typically money for a middle to back of the rotation starter. I think they signed him thinking that that's probably what he would be, as a middle rotation, 3 or 4 starter, at the very worst, a solid setup guy. I don't think they saw him pitching like a number 2 or a number 3 as he has to this point. So yeah, I would imagine they're probably even a little surprised by the results so far. Another one from Leland, just wondering, since Olson and Riley to some degree are struggling to get hits, why not separate the two with a batter or two until they get their offensive going? When batting back-to-back, almost ensuring 2 outs, seems to me it's worth a try. Snicker is the slowest person ever to change up the lineup, and for good reason sometimes. We did see it, I believe, a couple of years ago when Riley was struggling like this early on, moved him down in the lineup. I think it may have been Olson as well. They got hot, moved him back up. I think at this point, they both earned the trust to kind of just ride things out. And Jackson Baswell says, with the rotation looking how it did, do you think this is the rotation we ride with unless someone gets hurt? Yeah, unless somebody else gets hurt, these are the 5 starters for the Braves right now. I don't think Elder's going anywhere anytime soon. Joey says, apologize, this has been covered, but are you concerned with Ronald's lack of power and strikeout? Seems like a mechanical thing. Wonder if he visited Tatis this offseason like he did last. Ronald's off right now. Look, I talked about the fact that he's still one of the best leadoff hitters in baseball. He's getting on base over 400% of the time. He has second most runs in baseball, third most steals. He's still doing what your leadoff hitter needs to do, but he just doesn't look right at the plate at the moment to me, and that is a little bit concerning. Now, I'm not too worried about it because I think he'll get it going, but he just, we're 3-4 weeks into the season now, and it just still doesn't look like Ronald Acuna Jr. from last year, but it's still a very good baseball player. All right, that's all the questions from social media. I want to take another break here and then come back and preview this Guardians series. Really good pitching matchups in this one between 2 of the top teams in baseball. We'll discuss that more next. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. Had a fan tell me in the comment section that Marcell Ozuna cost them a good bit of money on FanDuel, blowing that save the other night. But you can see all of those lines, futures bets for Major League Baseball, and more over on FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet an automatic win. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. I want to quickly get into this matchup. Obviously, me and Grant will have you on Friday and Sunday night to recap this Braves Guardians series with the best team from the National or from the American League who got a win on Thursday afternoon, and the best team in the National League and the Braves matching up this weekend. Pitching matchup on Friday night, Logan T. Allen versus Chris Sale. Allen's had one really good start this year. The rest have been pretty nah. And the other 4 starts, he's given up 3, 3, 4, and 5, and hasn't made it through the 6th inning. He gives up a barrel rate of 10.8%. and doesn't get a lot of strikeouts. Seems like a pretty good matchup for the Braves. The one thing he does pretty well is he gets a lot of ground balls, but he's also given up 2 home runs in 3 of his 5 starts. So hopefully that continues on a Friday night. As for Chris Sale, the Guardians are 3rd in OPS against lefties and 2nd in average. Meanwhile, Chris Sale holds lefties to a 158 batting average this year. So something has to give in that matchup. Josh Naylor is just on fire, but he's especially crushing lefties at the moment as a left-handed hitter himself. David Fry, Tyler Freeman are a couple of righties in their lineup who both have an OPS over 1,000 against lefties this year. On Saturday, it'll be Tanner Bibee versus Charlie Morton. Bibee, in 3 of his last 4 starts, he's gone at least 5 innings and given up 2 earned or less. Big prospect, came out for the Guardians last year, one of their key pieces in the rotation going forward. He has walked 7 in his last 3 starts, so watch out for the control, and an 11.1% barrel rate against him this year. He doesn't get a lot of chase, but he does get a lot of whiffs, 35% whiff rate on the slider, changeup, and curveball. So a really good pitch mix there. You got to get on his 4-seamer, something Braves hitters, especially Ronald Acuna Jr., have struggled with so far this year. As for Charlie Morton, this is a very good hitting team that doesn't chase a lot. He's going to have to stick with that new approach of throwing that curveball in good spots in the zone and hopefully getting that weak contact. But if he doesn't have that command, this team will walk, run, and weak single you to death for a bunch of runs. On Sunday, it'll be Ben Lively versus Bryce Elder. Lively's been a bit of a surprise here for the Guardians. Just 2 starts at the big league level, but only 3 earned runs on 8 hits and a walk over an 11 1/3 innings with 14 strikeouts. He had 2 starts at AAA this year, 8 1/3 innings, just 5 hits, no walks, 3 earned, and 4 strikeouts. It's a low 90s sinker and 4-seamer, along with a sweeper, curve, change, and slider. And then Bryce Elder, we know the deal with him. I don't need to say it every time, but I'll say it here again. He's got to throw strikes to get ahead and make batters chase that slider just off the plate, change up down, or that four-seamer up. He's got to be able to live in those gray shadow areas along the strike zone. If he can do that, he can be very effective as he was his last time out. All right, thank you so much for the questions submitted here. I want to thank New Turbo, who's still with me here, of Wolf and Man, Jeffrey Humphreys, Miguel Fria, also in here, Wells, Luis, made it here till the end with me. Thank you so much, Rich Lechman and Win Gracer. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the live podcast here with me, our mailbag episode. Thank you so much for all the questions submitted and for joining me here live. But this will be the end of this podcast. I want to remind you, though, Locked On's launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and is now available on the Amazon Fire TV app and the free Fire TV channels app. Again, on Monday, we will recap the Guardians series and catch you up on everything happening at the minor league level. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube to Locked On Braves. Hit that thumbs up button. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.